The word shelter is associated, when I think about it, with my experience growing up. I grew up in a small Jewish community in New Jersey where everybody knew everybody. I knew the name of my mailman, I knew the name of my crossing guard, and of course I knew the name of every kid in my grade because there were only about 50 of us. I also could tell you the names of 90% of the families who lived on my block. I was in one of these small, sheltered communities. But it wasn't a bad thing. In fact, it was a really good thing. It led me to trust the world around me. It made me feel secure with anyone I spoke to. So when I came to New York City my freshman year of college, I realized that I wanted to create the same sense of community. And so the way this manifested was my freshman year of college in New York City, I could tell you the name of my Starbucks barista. I could tell you the name of my security guard. And yes, it also included my neighbors experiencing homelessness on the street. So one night, my sophomore year of college, I was giving out sandwiches to my neighbors on the street. And one man said to me, "Ma'am, it's so nice you're giving out sandwiches. But one thing we could really use are a pair of socks." So I went back to my dorm room, I opened my drawer, and I saw my pink polka-dotted size 6-foot socks that clearly weren't going to fit my new friend Diego. So I decided to go and knock on every door on my floor. And in about 15 minutes, I got over 40 pairs of socks. By the time I was a senior in college, we had spread to over 20 college campuses and collected over 50,000 pairs of socks. And I became a bit of a sock celebrity. But something you learn pretty quickly when you're giving out 50,000 pairs of socks is that there actually aren't that many people in New York City experiencing homelessness living on the streets for that many socks. And I very quickly learned that out of the 60,000 people who experience homelessness in New York City on a given night, only about 5% of them are living on the streets. And about 95% of them are actually living in local homeless shelters. So that led me to going around with my minivan, with my many boxes, to all the different shelters in New York City. And I was primarily going to single men and single women adult shelters. My first experience walking into a family shelter is the night that changed everything. I walked into a family shelter with 2 boxes of socks, and I dropped them off at the front desk, and I quickly turned to the door. But as I was turning, I saw the elevator door open, and a group of 15 3-year-olds walked out. And one of them came straight to me and gave me the most delicious 3-year-old hug. She had no idea who I was or why I was there. She was just a 3-year-old who wanted a hug. And that was the moment that changed everything. Because in that moment, I was able to see myself as a 3-year-old who just needed a hug. And this project, this Knock Knock Give a Sock project that had started with me collecting socks for a community that was less fortunate than the community that I grew up in, that was so different, that was so foreign, that was so disconnected from the way I grew up. What used to be a community and a project where I was helping them transformed into a community where I was helping my own community. Because I was able to see the 3-year-old in myself, the 3-year-old that all of us have in us, that just need a hug. And at that moment, like I said, it was the first time I was walking into a family shelter. Before then, I had met different adults who had had these stories and journeys through homelessness where our lives had diverged so many ways. Whether it was getting hurt on a construction site and not being able to pay rent that month, or whether it was someone who lost a job and didn't have a couch that they could crash on, or someone who was suffering from addiction. What struck me at that moment with that 3-year-old is the only difference between myself and my neighbor experiencing homelessness are the deck of cards that were dealt. And if we can all see ourselves, and if we can all see our neighbors and see ourselves in them as the 3-year-old that just needs a hug, you won't see yourself as a different community. You'll be able to see yourself as the same community. Because at the end of the day, every single one of us here is our 3-year-olds inside of us, in need of safety, in need of shelter, and in need of a really good hug. Thank you.